What's really happening in the industry now is that new kinds of data are arriving at a higher velocity, basically. It's coming in faster. It's much more various than data used to be. We're used to tabular stuff that fits well into relational tables. But increasingly we're collecting web logs and sensor data off the smart grid, and audio and video and free text. We'd like to be able to analyze that stuff in exactly the way that the RDBMS vendors have let us for 3 decades analyze numbers and birthdays. The tools are only now coming into existence to do that. The data volume curve is brutally up and to the right. If I'm right, if data is now being generated not by people, but by machines talking to machines, Moore's law is creating new data at a furious clip, right? The only way you can possibly keep up with this is to scale out in a way that enterprises never did. The old generation of relational databases that I grew up building and selling were designed to run on central servers, a small number of machines working together. If data is growing so quickly, we need to gang together tens, hundreds, thousands of machines, and that's fundamentally a different software architecture. Yeah, there's a lot of data in the world, right? But I don't think that that's the most important thing. I think what's really interesting is the variety of the data that we're getting now and the tools we want to use to analyze it. So it has been the case that minimum, maximum, medium, average were important measures of transactional data for the last decades, right? If you're doing behavioral targeting, right, you want to pay attention to user preferences. You want to look at relationship graphs. You want to consider sentiment that's embedded in user-generated content on your website. You want to bring to bear machine learning and pattern recognition and statistical analytical tools that never made sense before, that weren't available before. The data is driving a new kind of analysis. And I think that's what's really interesting in the enterprise today. We're not just collecting numbers and dates and character strings. We're collecting images, audio, video, sentiment, right, and analyzing that stuff. How do you know what's relevant? Our contention is that all things being equal, you don't know what's relevant. And so it would be stupid to throw anything away. You may as well keep everything. This is a lesson I think that we all learned from Google. What's relevant on the web? There is so much out there that it's beyond human imagination how much you could know, how much information there is on the web. What you do is use search. You basically use smart tools to help you find the relevant data. So it's not about storage and discarding data any longer. It's about finding and using the data that you want. The platforms we're building have to make that possible. What I'm most excited about Hadoop is that it is, in my experience, really the first innovative open source project. So if you think about what we did with Linux and what we did with MySQL and Postgres and so on, even JBoss, right? These projects walked into markets that were populated with big companies, with sophisticated technology. We all knew how to build operating systems. We understood what a database system was. The open source projects commoditized those markets. They implemented something that was well understood and already obviously valuable, right? There's no commercial analog for Apache Hadoop. There's no technology out there that you can buy right now today that does what this software does. The only place you can see any example running at all is really in the web space, inside Google. And that's a pretty thick brick wall to look through, right? Nobody can buy, nobody can use that software but Google. Those techniques are embodied in this open source, globally developed, wonderfully innovative package, Apache Hadoop. It is breaking new ground in the way that we store and the way that we analyze data. And I think that this technique, this platform, is really going to drive a fundamental shift in the way businesses operate. Again, for most of my career, I've been working with relational databases. And it was always the case that the innovation, the hard work in data management happened in the enterprise or in academia, right? Right now, all of the interesting work is happening in the consumer internet space and making its way out to universities and out to the major traditional enterprises. It's a big change in the way that we build and develop software. The explosion of data. You know, you think 44 times as big, just sit tight, man. It's going to get bigger, faster, and more various than that very, very quickly. In addition, the continued availability, basically the drop in price for storage, the drop in price for compute platforms, is going to allow people to build out storage and compute and analytic clouds for this data at a scale that are able to do things that have never happened before. So we're going to be able to look in depth using really sophisticated tools. We're going to be able to reason about data that we just can't imagine right now.